What would my life look like in the absence of my concerns?
Welcome to the Council of Dudes podcast. I'm your host, Vinny Brusco. I am a father, a husband, the founder of Agora Social Club, a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a certified life coach, and a facilitator of the Council of Dudes men's group. This podcast is here to help you tap into and follow your golden thread, that feeling that pulls you forward to become the best version of yourself. If you're someone who's into personal development and self-help and is looking to live a life of more alignment, then this is the podcast for you. Subscribe to the channel, click the notification button, and follow along on the journey of the show.
Hey, this is Ret Taylor. Just had an amazing conversation with Vinny. We went there, the heart of the wild, man, the soul of it all, vision quests, rites of passage. You're checking out the Council of Dudes podcast.
Here we go.
Guy, thanks for doing this, man. I feel like we just connected the other day and it was just like, yeah, totally makes sense to have a deeper conversation with this dude.
Hell yeah, man. Well, likewise. And yeah, definitely want to share it.
Yeah. So we connected through Eric and the Founders Only Club, which was has been a great community, a great resource for me personally, just jumping into meetings with all these different founders and CEOs of these companies that that are doing something in the health and wellness space and just all these different facets and getting these insights and perspectives and being new to this world. Every little bit of nugget, whether it be from like social media to just webs, whatever it is, has been so helpful. So shout out to Eric and the work he's doing to share his wealth and his knowledge.
Yeah, and his partner Wyatt Ewing. The two of them are just awesome guys and have brought an amazing circle of other people, men and women, around them. So yeah, it's a great community, Founders Only.
Yeah, and I absolutely got to shout out why, because those emails are always coming in. It's like, hey, kick this person. I'm like, all right, cool. Like such a useful tool, and I'm very grateful for it. So it's been awesome. So you and I got to talking through that community, and you were sharing what you do, and I thought that what a unique way, because there's a lot of men's groups and men's retreats and men's this, and it's community based, which is so important. But you're doing something very differently, which is bringing back this rite of passage that I think culturally as men we've lost, and you see it in a lot of indigenous cultures. It's still on the forefront of what their men go through and their boys in that transformational period, and it's something that we don't have. So you facilitate and structure vision quests.
Yeah, and all types of rites of passage, but the vision quest to me is one of the ultimate ones, and it's a vision quest it's ancient technology. And I call it technology because it works. What it does is it really helps you strip down all the noise that we feel living in this day and age as men, as women, but I'll talk as men, as being husbands and fathers, as being leaders, as, needing to have money and six-pack abs and investments and, all of it, right? And that's a lot of weight that we carry. And what it does is it turns into a lot of noise, and that noise creates, reverb that just makes it really difficult to hear what matters most, your truth, the things in your life that are truly important to you. And it makes it difficult to create a story around that. Who am I? What matters to me? What am I going to do? How do I want to spend my days? And so getting out, doing a vision quest, which most vision quests around the world, throughout time, around, every different culture, follows a very similar arc. And it's time in nature, in solitude, on your own, stripping away that noise so that you can hear your vision. And the Lakota call it crying for a vision. Other cultures call it all types of different things, but we're essentially just stripping away the noise, turning down the volume on all the roles and responsibilities, all the shoulds that we have. We should be this, we should be that, and allowing ourselves to hear that truth.
Yeah, and for me, my experience with that, which we spoke a little bit about, is more sensory deprivation and prayer and meditation. But unless you're able to immerse yourself in it, it's so hard, even in meditation or prayer. It's so hard to still remove the outside world. Like even when I get into the float tank, those first 10 to 20 minutes are, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. What am I doing? This is a waste of time. But when you
Yeah.
are physically entering a space, in the flow tank, you're physically entering a space, but you're also kind of submitting to and kind of relaxing, right? But when you're actively moving through and I want you to kind of talk about what you do specifically in these vision quests.
Hmm.
When you're physically still moving and your eyes are, and you're still stimulated, but you're not stimulated by the normal stuff that you're surrounded by.
Yeah. 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 And, we go to a couple very special places to me. We go to the Utah desert, the Canyonlands, in Escalante Grand Staircase National Monument. We go to the Elk Mountains, which are the mountains around Aspen, Colorado. Um, we go to Namibia, Saudi Arabia, and Mexico, and all places that have played big roles in my life. And we get out there into the wild, and there's something about being in nature on the land where the land doesn't care. The land doesn't care if you're a CEO or sleeping on your mom's couch in the basement. It doesn't care, and it strips away a lot. And it also brings in this deep remembering that this has been part of our culture. This has been part of us as human beings, to go into silence and solitude and just be there on the land. And really it becomes an allowing. Let me allow this to fall away. Let me allow that noise to quiet. And then let me allow my truth to come in. And yeah, you said specifically. So it's typically, the way I do it is it's 3 days on the land. Um, you're fasting for the most part. Fasting, not to make it like a, more of a struggle or more of a badass thing, but more of removing distraction. And food is a big distraction. We think about food all the time, whether it's 3 meals a day or snacks, but we're constantly thinking, all right, what's next? Okay, I'm, making food, cleaning up after food. So we just remove that. And there is something very ceremonial that happens too in the fast. And those of your listeners who've ever done a fast, you'll know that after 2 or 3 days, you start to feel differently, and your body goes into ketosis, and you start to regain energy. And in fact, colors become more vivid, and your thoughts become clearer. And so we bring that into the Vision Quest. And yeah, it allows you to go to places that you wouldn't normally, just by going camping, or not creating intention around this really beautiful rite of passage, this ancient technology. And it is a rite of passage because you come back different. You go on your quest, you go into what's called the threshold. And the threshold is what most people think of when, if they know a vision quest, that's what they think of. It's that time on the land in silence and solitude, fasting, crying for your vision. And the threshold, the etymology of the word threshold, that comes from the place where you would separate the wheat from the chaff. It's where people would literally beat the wheat against the floor, and then the wheat would separate from the chaff. And the chaff was, the stem, the stalk, the leaf, the roots. It was all needed. It was necessary to get the wheat to the point where it's harvestable. But at this point, you no longer need it. And so you separate the wheat from the chaff, and you say, thank you. I no longer need you, though. And we can relate that to some of the ways, some of the beliefs that we had in our 20s or our 30s. And okay, it served me. Thank you. I no longer need you. I'm discarding you. And I'm going to come back with the wheat. And the wheat's what carries the nutrition. And we come back not for ourselves, not to bring it home to us, but we do this to bring it back to our people, our families, our communities, our companies, our people. And so this is a selfless act. And in traditional cultures, you would come back from your vision quest, your rite of passage. And the village, the people wanted to know what your vision was. and they would sit with you and they would allow you to share it, and you would share it with the elders and with people who have been there themselves, been through that same trial, and they would be genuinely curious. What are you bringing back for us?
Yeah, I love that. And there's so many things to unpack there. I do want to tap into the experience of fasting. I've done the intermittent fasting, and then I did do a 3-day fast at the end of last year, going into the beginning of this year, and I just felt kind of compelled to do it. And we touched upon this when we first spoke, was that it's funny how hunger really comes in like these waves. And I think that's almost
Mm,
any natural impulse, whatever it may be, right? Any like even like not wanting to get out of bed, right? It's a wave that you have to ride it and kind of let it crash, and then you're like, oh, okay, I can get out of bed, right? But it
yeah.
hunger comes in these waves, and we're just so programmed to eat. Like you made the point of like we're thinking about what are we having for dinner tonight? Oh, I don't know. Let's go out. Let's do takeout. Let's cook. Let's do, oh, well, what do you want to cook? Let's make tacos. Let's make burgers. Let's make. So it's always like this it's occupying so much energy, right? Even if you're not and then you have obviously the biological breakdown of food, and that's, drawing blood and all that stuff. So there's a physical actual aspect to it, but then there's this like energetic consumption of the mind that eating entails, right? It's like what you hear CEOs wearing like just the same black t-shirt and jeans every day because it's just less that they have to give to thinking of what to wear today. Um,
Yep.
but in that fast, I realized a couple things. One was that it does come in these waves, and if I could ride out this wave, I'll be fine.
Hmm.
Two is that how instinctually we go to eat. I told you the story of I was at the barber shop
Hmm.
with my son and my daughter, and it was right around the holiday season, and they had like the old grandma bin of blue cookies. And my daughter's like, oh, can I have a cookie? And I said, yeah, of course. She opens it, and I instinctually just reached down to grab one. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm fasting. It didn't even cross my brain. Like
Yeah.
I didn't even have to stop. I did stop, but it was just instinctual. Like, oh, yeah, I have a cookie. Um,
Yeah.
so that realization to me was kind of like jawing because like how many times do I just mindlessly just throw something in my stuff it in my face?
Yeah.
And then the other part was going into in the second day I was going to train jujitsu, and I was driving, and I was like, whoa, to your point, everything was so vibrant. Everything was
Mm,
so alive. And I wasn't in the woods. I was just in home, like regular, life
yeah.
stuff. But just that simple 3-day fast, still in my regular life, was just so many insights and perspectives to take away, to share with people, to say, hey, listen, like we're these kind of touch points. So I think that's so important to not only get the data and the download and the information, but to now share it because you never know how it could, change and affect and help someone's life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. And I love, you know, that wisdom that comes with, oh, yeah, this is just a wave. It'll pass. It's okay.
Yeah.
The resiliency, the strength that's born from that experience is really, it's really powerful and really something that you can carry into other places. And it's, anything from the argument with your spouse to just sitting in traffic, all right, this will pass.
Yeah.
This is fine. The cold plunge does a good job of that too. Um, it's about quieting that voice in your head that says, no, 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 get out, get out, get out. And you go, nope, I'm in control here. I got this. I can, I'm responsible for the way I show up.
Yeah, the duality of that voice in your head is it's wild, right? It really is such a beautiful thing. And I think there's an alchemy to that, right? Like there's this
Hmm.
alchemy component where when you could take that voice of like, because that voice is serving you in a way. Maybe it's not in that moment, but there is some service to that voice. So when you could take that voice, sit with it, be able to kind of sit across from it and be like, okay, I hear where you're coming
Uh-huh.
from. I understand where you're coming from. I appreciate, and the gratitude piece is so huge, but that's no longer serving me. That's such a
Yeah,
huge component of alchemizing that voice and then taking that and transmutating it into something that's productive or fuel or giving to others and of service.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that. And it's a big unlock. It was a big unlock for me. It's a big unlock for others when you can realize that you are not your voice.
Mm. Yeah. So what brought you into this work? I mean, you mentioned kind of doing these on your own, but what brought you to do this?
Yeah, I've been a founder and entrepreneur for 21 years, and it was always about chasing money. I
Mm,
grew up without much of it, and I had this wound inside of me that said, go fill this, get as far away from that wound as possible, and go fill this with money. And with that will come safety and security and accolades and this sense that you are enough. And I climbed that mountain, and I got up there, and I realized I think I've been climbing the wrong mountain. And I was literally on a mountain. I was,
quite literally. That's a
yeah,
bad place to realize you're on the wrong mountain.
yeah. Well, I was on Denali, tallest mountain in North America, climbing up in Alaska with some amazing friends, and we had 2 weeks of great weather. Denali is usually like a 2 to 3 week expedition, and we had 11 days of amazing weather, and we got up to high camp up above high wall, um, or yeah, up to about 18,000 feet, and we were tracking these two massive Arctic storms that were coming our way. And you could see them on the radar. It's all everybody in camp was talking about, and we had to make a decision that night. Are we going to stay and sit through these two storms, which could be anywhere from like 6 days to 12 days at 18,000 feet in negative 50 degrees with 100-mile-per-hour winds? Or are we going to go back down and try again another time, maybe? And, my first instinct was, of course, we're going to stay. That's what I do. I do hard shit. Like, I've gotten really, really good at doing really hard stuff. And it became part of my personality. It became part of my identity. Part of my business strategy was effort equals success. That
Mm,
became part of my whole strategy. And I had instances where that was proven right for me as an endurance athlete, in business when it wasn't so difficult. And But I realized that night, laying in my tent thinking about this question: are we staying or are we going? I realized I had been fighting upstream my whole life since I was 10 years old, and I made a vow to get out of the poverty I was in. And I had been deliberately pointing that rowboat toward the rocks and the rapids, and taking a lot of perverse pride in being able to row through them and outrow others. But I realized the mountain doesn't care, man. The mountain, it's gonna do what it's gonna do. The mountain's gonna mountain. And it didn't care if I had, all the effort in the world, if I was as, stronger than Hercules. It just didn't care. It was gonna bring us weather that was just impossible. And I realized that I had been rowing upstream against the current, and I let go of the oars that night in my tent. And it was very much a vision, in line with a vision quest. And I saw myself begin to drift in that little rowboat backwards, flowing with the current. And there was this beautiful surrender where I let go of the oars, and I said, I'm going to go with the current from now on. And I knew what that meant. And it meant coming back to Boulder the next morning, Boulder, Colorado, which is where I live, and talking to my business partner and telling him I'm done fighting uphill with this business. We had a beautiful business called Ned. We made all types of different natural remedies, things for sleep and stress, tinctures and topicals. We gave away a lot of money to amazing environmental organizations. We helped farmers. We helped all types of people. But it wasn't me anymore.
mm,
It was like what was right for me on paper, but it wasn't me anymore. And I'm not meant to be sitting in an office looking at spreadsheets all day long. That's not what I'm here for. And so I allowed the current to carry me into the thing that I am most passionate about, the thing that actually comes with ease and joy and flow for me. And that is being outdoors with people. That is having deep, meaningful conversations with people. And it's bringing people through the thresholds of their life, being a guide in that, helping them cross those thresholds, those meaningful moments for them. And the Vision Quest it's something I've gone to my whole life. But really more recently, in the last 15 years or so, I've come to work with some real experts in that world. I've studied the various ancient cultures and traditions, and it's just the absolute best medicine I know for finding your truth and then moving forward with it in a really sustainable way that doesn't leave you.
Mm. I do want to make note that the Vision Quest is free of any type of plant medicines and psychedelics or anything of that nature, because we automatically, or at least I do,
Hmm.
you hear Vision Quest like, oh, we're all taking mushrooms in the woods, cool. But
Hmm.
there is a purity and a stripping way, as you put it, which obviously adding any extra components could can skew that takeaway. So I do just want to make that note. I know you and I said that on the call, but I just kind of went for the listeners and the viewers. There is no
Yeah,
removal of everything.
yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, Vinny. I'm all for my plant medicine, and but this is different. The medicine here is the land. It is the silence, the solitude. It's that severance phase, and I've done a number of plant medicine journeys, and I've done a number of vision quests, and I can honestly say, and I know others would as well, that the lessons, the learning, the teachers stay with you
Mm.
longer. They're more real. They're more grounded with the vision quest. But the psychedelic journeys are also great teachers as well. But
Yeah,
this is different.
yeah, it's all you, right? It's you
Hmm.
removed so many layers down that even if you have these deep insights and perspectives with the psychedelic or with any type of plant medicine, there's always the emergency exit that you could say, well, it's the plant medicine. Like there is this other
Hmm.
thing, like there's a little asterisk at the bottom, right? That you could say, well, it was the plant medicine, right? So when it's just you, whether it be a flow tank or vision quest, and you remove everything, and you could say, yeah, well, it's nature. Nature's the plant medicine. Okay, well, it's the float tank. Yes, but you're inside of this vacuum that there's no internal that's adding to
Yeah.
the experience other than the removal of everything, which is completely wild. I do want to say one thing that I love about what your the nature component of this. I'm not sure if you follow the I don't know if they're still active, but the Instagram page Nature is Metal, and it's all these like gnarly
Yeah.
nature moments that we think like we have such a disconnect from nature, like we really do. And I
Mm.
mean, I can only say I listen. I live in New York, right? I live in Westchester, New York. So yeah, there's some trails that I run, and there's some rucks that you go on. But are you really like immersed in nature? And when you remove, the Disneyfication of animals and birds flying on your shoulder and whistling Dixie, right? When you remove all that, nature doesn't care. It is
No.
the great equalizer. It doesn't care if you're a baby lamb or if you're a grizzly bear or you're a wolf or you're a mountain or you're a lake or a river or an ocean. It has no bias. It does not care.
Uh-huh.
So I think to take yourself, the human vessel, and put yourself in this unbiased, unfiltered, raw experience for 3 days and with no other additional help or assistance, it's huge,
Hmm.
man. That's like such a great way of going about and humbling yourself, but in not like in the cold plunge in the sauna and like jujitsu and lifting and CrossFit and high rocks. It's like that humbles you, but it humbles your ego. This like humbles the soul in a way.
Yeah, and it's all about the soul. That's what this is about. It's about the soul. And it's for men too, it's about the wild man in us. It's about letting out the wild man a little bit. And those of you, we talked about Iron John, the book Robert Bly
Yeah,
wrote
yeah,
about the
great book,
wild man.
great
Great
book.
book. And if any men listening haven't read it and you're curious about what this call is to do some crazy shit and get out into nature and adventure, or test your limits. Like, just check out Iron John. It'll help you understand yourself quite well. But yeah, it's, nature is a place where we can go to let the wild man out a little bit, and it is crucial that we do so. It's just like it's crucial we blow off some steam. Yeah,
Yeah. And the beautiful thing about that book is, and I read it years ago, um, it's really about like it is about like tapping in and letting that part of you go, right? But not
uh
go in
huh,
this like it's so hard. I was actually having this conversation just yesterday. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he was just kind of talking about like that duality that he has within himself. And I was like, dude, you gotta have the conversation with that version of you. Like
yeah,
there's this therapeutic practice called the open chair, and you literally sit across from an empty chair and you talk to it as if it's you. I've done the practice where I've actually gotten up and sat on the other side and answered and came back and had the full
mm.
dialogue from anyone from the outside looking in. It's insane, right? But at the same time, you're sitting across from yourself and you're interfacing with yourself from both sides of you. And what I came to is we need each other. The Joker needs Batman, right? We need
yeah,
these yin and yang energies in ourselves. And it's not about removing it or severing it off. And Jung talks about like the shadow and the golden shadow and this integration process, which is so huge in that. But in the sense that you need each other in order to like just be a human, but it's
yeah.
how that person shows up in those moments, and how can you alchemize each energy source and use it as fuel to produce rather than to like burn and destroy.
hmm Yeah, that's exactly right. And out there on the land in the Vision Quest, you're going to meet both sides. You're going to meet that. You're going to embrace it. You're going to sit with both. And yeah, the light needs the shadow, and the shadow needs the light. And we talk a lot about the different directions, and this is comes from my Lakota teacher, but and Native American tradition. But we talk about the east is new beginnings, the west is your darkness, the north is where you go to be an adult, and the south is that adolescent energy. And
Mm,
then there's above and below, and then there's the center, the seven directions. And we do a lot of thinking in terms of the different directions. And what they all do is they create a full 360-degree, you know, sphere that makes for wholeness. And
mm,
wholeness is what a lot of us are seeking. It's what I realized I'm seeking. And it's that yin and yang, it's Batman and Joker. And a lot of us think it's this dichotomy. We live in the city, and we're on our path in the city, and we have ambition, and we have goals, but there's this part of us that really wants to be in nature and slow down and have our shoes off on the sand, and we think that we can't have one, or we can only have one and we can't have the other, but there's no, the two can coexist, and in fact actually ladder up both. So
mm.
it really is about being whole, and getting out there into nature can, with that sort of intentionality, can
Yeah.
go a long way toward that.
Yeah. It's interesting because I wonder, can you have both? And I understand like you could have both in the sense that they both exist. But I mean, in your particular case, and I think of like myself, I think of other people that are in the constructs of whatever it is that they're doing. And that could show up in jobs or whatever it is that's not authentically them. And they're not being true to themselves to that capacity. Can you actually have a balance both, or does it have to be that both just exist? Right. And for you, you were doing the CEO founder thing and very aligned in a lot of ways, but yet there was a tipping of the scale that made you say, this isn't it anymore. Right. So is it something where you could show up as both, or is it going to be always going to be this counterbalance that needs to happen?
Yeah, well, that's the work. It's if you choose to accept it, you're choosing to go on that journey
Mm,
of, and it becomes a journey of enchantment. And I love that word, enchantment.
yeah, it's
It's
great.
it yeah, it opens it up to magic and,
Yes. Yes.
higher
Let's
higher
go.
intelligence, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get
So,
it, dude.
and if you choose not to, and this is Elizabeth Gilbert talking. Elizabeth Gilbert's amazing writer. She wrote a book called Big Magic,
I love that book.
and yeah, right,
Great
yeah.
book. Great book.
Well, my favorite quote from it, and I'll have to paraphrase it, but it's basically it says, "All of us are born with a treasure, and it's buried deep within inside us.
Mm,
Some of us will choose never to go on the hunt for that treasure, and that's okay. But what you're signing up for is a mundane life.
mm.
Those of us who choose to go on the hunt to uncover our buried treasure, we're signing up for an enchanted life."
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
One of the big takeaways I always reference in that book is that the ideas are like stray dogs and they're
Mm.
floating around and they're looking for a home and they tap you on the shoulder and it's like, are you going to bring this dog into your home? Or are you just going to be like, no? And then that dog is going to find someone who's going to bring it in and nurture it. And just, I'm sure you came across same thing, and I'm sure you still do in building Agora and building what we're building here. There have been so many guys who've come to the door and said, I had an idea. I had a, and I'm like, that's
Uh-huh.
amazing. Like, that's amazing. But you didn't take action on it. Right. Like,
Yeah.
and we all have great ideas. We all have those shower moments where you're like, oh man, I'm doing the thing and I'm living the life. And, but and you could chalk it up to having a deeper relationship with God or faith, whatever it is. But all of a sudden you start to have this belief in that, right? And you get these
Hmm.
little nods and these little, Joe Dispenza calls them like the breadcrumb trails, right? You get the
Hmm.
little, I call it the golden thread. It's this little pulling thing that says you're on the right path. This is the way.
Yeah.
And it's small little
Yeah.
nuggets, and that's the magic. The magic isn't in the final thing. The magic is in the work and in the process of the unveiling of the thing, going towards the center of yourself and discovering something that you couldn't even imagine, but you have to believe in it. You got to believe. Like, I
Yes.
have these mantras, and one of them is that magic is real. Like, it's real. I know we
Uh-huh.
think magic,
Yes.
magician, and voila,
Right.
right? I saw her in
Yeah.
half, you know?
Uh-huh.
Sure, but then there's a real magic to the world. And
Oh,
that's
yeah.
and that's the stuff that's like, whoa. When you experience that, there's no going back.
There's no, yeah, and who would want to, man?
Oh,
That's the
dude,
thing.
100%. I had the Monsignor from my church on, and we spoke a little bit about that. And for me, it's been coming into more of my faith and belief in Jesus and all that stuff. And I said exactly that. I was like, you wouldn't even want, as difficult as the journey forward is, you would
Yeah.
not even want to turn back. And
No.
and you do have to be delusional.
And you have to have courage. You have to
Yeah.
have courage. And that's what Big Magic is all about. It's about having that courage. Like, she talks so much about the courage, and it does take courage to believe in the magic and to go on the hunt and to do the thing.
Yeah, but
It's
where does that start though? Like for me, I think of the movie Step Brothers, and he talks about how he
uh-huh.
wanted to be a dinosaur, and he's like, "You're not a fucking dinosaur." But we lose that. I've been actually talking about this a lot lately. Is the idea of like my son's 6, my daughter's 11. She's on a totally. She drew a picture the other day. It's on the fridge. It's on what? It's a perspective piece, and on this side of the perspective, it's all like colors and rainbows and unicorn. It's all like
Mm.
amazing. And then as the perspective, you go through this tunnel, and on the other
Wow.
side of the perspective is just grass and like a tree. And I'm like, what is this? She goes,
Oh.
oh, it's leaving childhood. And
Wow.
I'm like, bro, like, I'll send it to you. But
Please do. I want to see it.
yeah,
Yeah.
my son who's 6, I do wonder, like when he's holding, and I've been referencing this a lot, like when he holds a stick, right, and he's like, oh, it's a sword. Like, is there a
Yeah.
part of him that truly sees a sword, and we just forgot, and we think that's silly kid stuff? But does he, like, he knows it's a stick, but does he see this, like Muppet Babies? Like, does he see the sword? You know?
Yes, he does. He
Yes, dude.
does.
Yes.
Yeah. No, he does. And we still can too. We still can too. And Elizabeth's right. It is stray dogs, and they're wandering around and they're coming up to you. and do we have the courage, the enchantment to see them for what they are, or
Yeah.
do they just pass us? And I always envision it as like these little like orbs of light that are just kind of like floating
Mm.
past you all the time. And it's whether you're tuned in enough or not to see them and then grab them and then make them your own. And that's what I call enchantment. And, enchantment can be anything. I mean, we live in a world where, the ocean glows from phytoplankton. We live in a world where when I was out in Utah with the last quest, there was no moon, and yet the stars were so bright there were shadows cast from the stars. I mean, we live in
Whoa.
in that type of magical place, and that's just on this planet.
Right.
And so yes, I choose to believe in enchantment, and it has helped me. It has also stung me in the ass a few times.
Yeah, of course.
Um, but yeah, like you said to your Monsignor, it's who would you wouldn't choose it any other way. So
Yeah. And you could remove yourself and be in magical places and see those things that are, we can call them very extreme experiences that maybe the average person's not going to go see the Northern Lights, right? Never happened. Maybe I will one day, who knows? But that magic is captured, yes, in the Northern Lights, but in a simple blade of grass. Like when you
mhm.
like when you're outside grounding, whatever that practice looks like for you, and you look down, and you're like, this is one blade of grass. Think how many
Mm,
blades of grass are on this lawn, and then think how many blades of grass are on that field that or in your town, in your state, in your like, and then you start to go out. That is insane. Like that is like yes,
mm,
the Northern Lights exist. It's a awe-inspiring thing, but so is the simplicity of that blade of grass in your front lawn, or the birds that are singing in the morning, and that is part of the magic. And it's not one thing's more magical than the other. It's this beautiful, uh, uh, this emission of light, like a dimmer switch. It's like, yeah, maybe the blade of grass is like just turning on the light, and the Northern Lights is full tilt, but like it's this scaling up process that's amazing.
Hi everyone, I'm Vinny Brusco, founder and CEO of Agora Social Club. I'm also all of these things. Agora Social Club is Westchester County's hub for guys' mental fitness. Let me show you how we're revolutionizing the future of men's mental health. All accessible via key fob as a member, Agora Social Club seamlessly blends the community, comfortability, and convenience of a coffee shop, community workspace, gym, and recovery center. Since opening in April of 2024, Agora Social Club has helped hundreds of guys become better men. Through our men's groups, dads groups, community ruck walks, and 5Ks, guys are finding a deeper sense of connection through community. But don't just take my word for it. Check out our 5-star Google reviews where guys are sharing their transformative experiences. So what's next? We're looking for an investor to help us build Agora 2.0, a flagship location located right here in Larchmont, offering our members even more space, more amenities, and more community. By the end of 2030, we're targeting multiple locations in 4 major U.S. cities. We're excited to share our vision of the future of men's mental fitness.
that's what begins to happen on the quest. Day one is really about kind of like settling in. There's some, sometimes there's some conversation in your head, like, what am I doing here? Like
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
this is kind of crazy. And then yeah, a, a a hawk flies by and circles above you, and you have this like remembrance of your grandfather, and there's
Mm.
this feeling of dropping in, and it begins to work on you. Night one can be kind of a little scary for some people. Maybe never slept out, um, and then you make it through the night. You wake up the next morning and you go, okay, I did that. That was me. And there's no lying here. There's no performing. There's no one to perform for.
Mm.
And yeah, and then a lizard comes and visits you and walks through your camp, and the sun does something interesting. The clouds, you see a vision in the clouds, and it begins to work on you, and that magic begins to take a hold, and it starts to show you that your dreams, your ambitions, your beliefs, like the real ones, the ones that are really deep inside of you, the ones that really matter, the ones that aren't about fear, scarcity, the ones that aren't about, what your parents or what society told you should be. It's those dreams underneath all of that noise that can begin to take root.
Mm.
And it is through that beauty and enchantment and that connection, that oneness. And that's when you start to feel, all right, I know why I'm out here now. I know what I'm doing, and I know what I'm calling in. And getting chills thinking about it. That's good medicine right there.
Yeah. And I think it's layered, right? Like you can reach these different summits, right? And hit these plateaus, and then you're like, I have to climb the staircase again. And that knowing and growing shifts, right? Like okay, now all of a sudden I have another staircase to climb. And what a powerful tool to be removed of everything. And I think moving the layers, the depths of layers, because as you step into these more entrepreneurial or CEO, or you're going out on your own, it does become this weird juxtaposition where like, why am I doing this? Oh, that's why I'm doing this. But is that really why I'm doing this? And maybe there's this other layer to it. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
go backwards with that. What are most people doing while they're out in the woods? Are they or out in nature? Are they
Yeah.
wandering? Are they kind of sitting around playing with stick? Like, what are people doing? What are people coming back and saying they're actually doing? Because there has to be a doing,
Yeah.
right? Where like there's got to be
Yeah.
some doing.
There is some doing, and it varies from person to person and time of day to time of day. And it could be, throwing pebbles at another pebble to see how close it can get,
Like
to
bocce ball.
yeah, to truly, like, being present and being in it and calling in the vision and severing yourself from those beliefs. Um, I if I kind of like people to play with their edge, right? So if you're a person who loves to is really drawn to wander around and you want to go explore, say nope, um, sit, be with the boredom,
Mm,
be with yourself, um, or vice versa. One of the things I like to do is I like to envision myself in my sacred spot, sort of surrounded by bookshelves in a circle, and I take those roles, responsibilities. I take my beliefs, the quote unquote good ones and bad ones, and I put everything up on the shelf around me.
mm,
And one by one, I will take those down, and I'll hold them in my hand, and I'll I'll analyze. I'll look into them, and I'll see what's there for me.
mm,
And maybe there's nothing there for me. Maybe there never was, but I've carried this my whole life. Maybe it served me in my 30s. Maybe it served me last week, but maybe it's no longer serving me now. And I'll take it and I'll actually discard it. And I might even write it down on a piece of paper. And that's going to go into my death lodge. And the death lodge is going to be a night where you have a fire and you're going to throw each of those things that you're not going to bring back with you. You're going to write those on paper. You're going to put those in the fire. You're going to burn that. And then you're even going to bury the ashes, and you really leave that out there. So I left out on Denali, I left the idea that it has to be hard to be valuable. I
mm.
left that behind. That's no longer part of me. And that was a huge unlock for me. And so that's one of the things I like to do. Again, it could be as silly as playing bocce with yourself.
I think I'd find like a big, I'd find a big stick and just do bow staff stuff. I'd be like, playing Ninja Turtle
Yeah.
out there, just tap into that inner
Yeah.
child.
Yeah, but it really is about just sitting with the boredom, and when you're called to do something, just sit for 15% longer. And
Yeah.
but those days get long, man. And without the break of all right, it's breakfast time. All right, now it's lunchtime. Without those demarcation points
Yeah.
or something to look forward to, the days get long. And 3 days can go by very, very slowly, and also looking back very fast.
Yeah, that's life in general. Do you ever see that?
Mhm.
I forget what it was. Obviously saw it on social media somewhere because that's where we get all of our information now. But there's like some guy buried himself. It was like an experiment. He buried himself underground, like pretty deeply and in. So he had no, no light source or whatever it was. And he ended up staying like I forgot how long he was there. It was a while. And he ended up finding like a new circadian rhythm. Was like he was up for
Mm,
like 2 days. Like that was his
mm,
natural sleep cycle. Like it totally
mhm.
changed his relationship with waking up and going to sleep. Now, obviously, you have the sun and that kind of is, but we also
Yeah.
have that skewed now because of lights and our phones and because of Netflix. So it's like, I'm
Oh,
tired. I
yeah.
want to go to bed. Let me just turn on the TV and I'll stay up and watch it until I fall asleep rather than like the sun is setting. Kind of seems like a good time to start shutting down the engine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that. I love that. And yeah, we all have our own different patterns. And I love that he did that as an individual and went to go see what was true for him.
Mm-hmm.
That's a beautiful practice. And that's what we're talking about here. Like go out, go somewhere special, sever yourself, and go see what's true for you.
Yeah.
That's the essence of all of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we have all these constructs, we used to have different time, right? So Westchester, New York, where you are, might have different time than Boston.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, it wasn't until trains that needed to run on a schedule did cities actually have to sync up their time. And there were like, yeah, it's crazy. And people were like up in arms about this. Like, we're not going to be on Boston time. Fuck those guys.
Yeah.
And so,
Say daylight savings
uh,
time. People get so like, I daylight saving time. They're like, I get it, but yeah, so it makes sense.
yeah,
That's funny.
yeah. And it's all just a construct. And yeah, nature doesn't care. You go out onto the land, and nature doesn't care. It has its own rhythm and time, and you will adjust to it. And it's inevitable. And what it does is it becomes true. And with truth, it's easy. Truth is what it is. It's binary. It's the lies, it's the constructs that take energy
Mhm.
to remember them, energy to be in them. It takes a lot of energy to be in a construct or a lie. And when you get out on the land, it's just true. And you sleep when you want to sleep, and you don't when you don't, and you get into that rhythm pretty quick. Actually, um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
I love the idea of this library of yourself essentially. One of my first experiences in the sensory deprivation tank was it came to me of like my life being like this Rubik's cube and I was just going
Mm,
like trying to organize
mm,
the colors. And then it got somewhat formatted and what came up for me was like the shelving. Like I think of like the IKEA trunk shelves that like my kids have all their toys in, like the stacked
uh-huh.
ones, like
Yeah.
2 by
Yeah.
whatever. And I was like compartmentalizing all my dynamics, relationships, thoughts, and feelings. And you brought up a great point of this idea of like, does that even really bother me? Or have I just brought that with me because I
Yeah.
thought it bothered me? But really, when you remove all the bullshit, is it real? Does it even really bother me? You're like, oh no, it doesn't really bother me. And you're like, oh,
Uh-huh.
like why have I thought this bothered me for so long? And
Yeah.
it's like a weird realization that there are so many things that you walk around with every single day because we're always jacked up that we just think like I gotta be bothered and stressed and anxious and depressed and I have to live this way. And it isn't until you settle into that like that piece of you, that part of you, like, oh, that really doesn't even bother me. Why am I so frazzled by that?
Yeah. Well, think about the opposite way too. Like, what am I carrying that does bother me? But I've just been creating this story around, oh, no, this is just my weight to carry. There's
Yeah.
so much, right?
Yeah,
There's
that's
so
great.
much that we carry that just because we can carry it, we take it on.
Mm,
Just because we can. And the interesting thing about carrying weight is when you get good at carrying weight, people will just pile more and more and more weight on you, and it
yeah.
becomes yours to carry. But a lot of us never stop to ask, wait a minute, why am I even carrying this in the first place? Like, where did this
Yeah.
come from? Maybe I was meant to carry this 10 years ago, but not in this decade. This
Wow.
is And so when we stop and we slow down, we get to examine what we're carrying with us. And then we can either put it back in our backpack
Mm-hmm.
or parts of it. Maybe we can, burn and bury the other parts. Maybe some of it goes to Goodwill or somebody else, but we can carry what we choose to. And maybe that's only 5% of it, or maybe it's none.
Mm.
But yeah, we've all gotten, as men and women, but I'll speak to men, we've gotten really good, a lot of us, at carrying a lot of weight that was never ours to carry.
Yeah. What comes up for me is the term emotional Sherpa.
Mm. Yeah.
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 It's like you're carrying
Yeah.
all this stuff do you even
It's not even yours. It's not even
do you
yours.
even get a chance to open the backpack and be like, what's inside of this? What's going
Yeah.
on inside here? Yeah.
Yeah. It's not even yours. It's for somebody else. And, the stronger a Sherpa gets, the more they load them up. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea of carrying weight, it's a big one. There was a amazing podcast called The Emerald, and it came out a few months ago, and he talks about the weight that we carry. And he's right. And we used to outsource all that weight to gods and deities and myths and legends and even goats. That's where the term scapegoat comes from. The village would choose a goat to put all its shit on, and they would put their anger and the weight that they were carrying into that goat, and then the village would collectively slaughter that goat, and the weight would disappear. And you think about it, we had Atlas holding up the weight of the whole world, so that we didn't have to, so that we could just hold up the weight that's ours, that's really truly ours.
Yeah.
And now we've gotten away from that, and there's something that you lose when you stop believing in those myths, deities, gods, and legends.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned kind of coming out. So in regards to coming out of the 3 days and the integration of all of this, because there's a piece, and I always reference the old school grammar school bubble tests. You could fill in
Mm-hmm.
C and get the answer right, but it doesn't mean you actually know it, right? There's an integration and there's a knowing, or I think
Yeah.
of jujitsu, and it's like I can learn a move, but until I know the move and it's part of who I am, it's really kind of just something I'm trying. So there's integration, and then there's just a knowing, right? So how are you
Yeah.
incorporating, and how are guys and taking away the lessons that they're getting from there and implementing into their life? Do you have like an actual strategy behind that, and what does that look
Oh
like?
yeah. Oh yeah. And I'm so glad you asked. It's actually a big part of my why I'm doing this. For years, I went and did my own vision quest, and I would come back and I would try to incorporate them, and I would, but I was on my own, and I didn't have a village to return to with elders who had been there before me. And I would come home, and my wife would give me a kiss, and then there'd be, it's your turn to take care of Sienna, and
Mm-hmm.
it'd be Monday morning the next day, and I would go, and a lot of my visions, I struggled not only to incorporate them, but even just to make meaning of them. And what would happen in ancient cultures, or not even ancient, but indigenous cultures where this was a normal way of being, people would come back from their quest, and the elders and the whole village they'd say, tell us about this. Tell us what you saw, because you would go out on your quest, not for yourself, but for the village, for your people. And they would be genuinely curious. Tell us. And you would share. And in that sharing, you would be witnessed. They would see you, and they would say, welcome back. We see you differently now. We see you now as someone else. We see you as a man or a woman. We see you, and you might even actually get a new name at that phase in your life. You would have your childhood name, and then you would have your post quest name, because it's a threshold, and you're gonna remember, you're leaving behind the chaff, the stem, the roots that gets left behind, and what you come back with is true, is you, and it's there, and that's where the nutrition is. And so you you would be witnessed and seen in that transition. And that's what we're missing in our society. We're missing this. And so we don't know if we're still boys or teenagers or men or what is a man. Like, and we go and we do crazy shit and we jump off of, you know, high things into high, deep water, hopefully. And we, and we essentially we burn down the village just to feel the heat, which is an African proverb.
Mm.
If if the young people are not initiated, they will burn down the village just to feel the warmth from the village. They'll
Wow.
destroy it just for the warmth of that. And that's a big part of why so many of us are floundering these days. And Bill Plotkin and many others think that many of us never actually leave adolescence. We never actually become men, adults,
Yeah.
and we stay in the belief systems that we had as adolescents, and we keep that, and it prevents us from living a whole life. It prevents us from really stepping into our whole being. So, long way of getting to it. This is very important to me, to be able to have people to come back to from your quest. And so that's why I do it with a group, and I'll take 6, 7, 8, 10 people out, and everybody has their own solo spot. And after the quest is done, we step back over the threshold into today's world. And then we all come together and we gather around the fire and we share our visions and we tell our story and we listen. And storytelling is meaning making for the listener, yes, but
Mm.
also for the teller. And so by sharing our visions, by sharing our experience, we make meaning of our own experience. And then those around the circle, we reflect back. We get to say, we become a mirror for them. And it's not
Yes.
about solving or fixing. We're not saying, you should do this or have you thought of that? It's just a reflection. I noticed you really lit up when you talked about this. I got shivers when you told me that crow somehow reminded you of your grandfather. You know, we become the mirror for that, and that really helps us begin to make meaning of our visions, because some of them are pretty esoteric, but they're
Mm.
there, they're real, they're right. But we need others to mirror it back for us, and then yeah, that group becomes a brotherhood
Mm.
and or sisterhood, and it's been really beautiful seeing those groups stay together, hold each other accountable, continue to witness each other, do things for each other. One of the guys, he lives in New York, and he's going through some stuff, and two of the guys flew out to go be with him,
Mm.
and we're continually holding each other accountable to the visions that we came out with, and so we're not letting them fade away, and yeah, incorporation is the most important part. It's the longest chapter in the book I'm writing about all of this, and
Awesome.
yeah, and it's where the rubber meets the road, really.
Yeah, I try to read you more. I mean, the book, one of my favorites is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And, it's a sales book, but it really is just this human psychology book of how everyone wants to be seen and validated. And so often we don't even see ourselves. A buddy of mine the other day sent me this video. It's like one of those things like, hey, before you scroll past this, send this to a friend that's, going through this. And,
Hmm.
and I'll send it to you later. But he sent me this video of, like, I see someone who's just like, through adversity and through challenge, you've pushed through and just keep on going. And I see someone that before you even know it, all this is going to pay off. And I was talking to my therapist about this, and I just started crying. And she's like, "What's coming up?" I was like, "I don't even see myself like this. Like, here's my
Mm-hmm.
buddy who's sending me this message. It's so beautiful." And I text him right after, like, "Dude, I can't even tell you how much that meant to me and how much I really needed in that moment." And he was like, "Yeah, man, like same here." And we went back and forth, but so often we don't even see ourselves as the world sees us, good, bad, or indifferent. we need to strip back some of that and go, oh man, I am that person as well. And I think that's such a beautiful integration of that, because you are this new person, and it could be like a day late, like it could be 2 days later,
Hmm.
like, but the experience of what you've had is so profound. And I mentioned to you, I think in the float tank that I've had, John C. Lilly, the inventor of float tank, had this thing called the 0 point. And it was this point of consciousness it was pure consciousness. And I had
Mm,
an experience with it where I was floating through void and abundance in this perfect
mm,
harmony and
mm.
balance. And I would dare I say I pecked its lips. And the moment I realized it was in this space, I was out. And I was
Ah,
explaining it to someone, and he's like, "Well, what about like your kids and your wife?" I'm like, "They don't exist." I'm like, "You don't exist. None of it exists." And you can't take that experience, get out of that tank, and then although my name didn't change, I'm not the same Vinny that walked in that tank, right? It's an
yeah,
hour and a half later or whatever the number was, but I can't be the same person. The experience,
yeah,
and you could say, oh, well, you deprive yourself. Sure. But it was as real as real, right? What is reality anyway? As this table.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I love that idea of shifting the actual identity of who you are and then being able to share that. I mean, that's huge. And obviously the men's groups that I run here, there's such a piece of that where it's like, oh, I've been through that. And yeah, we do
mm,
offer some of the words of wisdom through experience and insight, but just knowing the camaraderie and the companionship of I've been there and I'm on
yeah,
the other side of it now.
yeah. It's so beautiful, and to come and sit around a fire under the stars with other people who have just been through the same gauntlet you went through. There that is rare and powerful, and I mean, even just being witnessed. Like so many of us, we never feel like we're ever really seen, and it's all we really want at the bottom of it all is to be seen. And yeah, I host a fire circle up at my place um, once a month if I can, without a fire ban. But yeah, it's just come, share what's on your heart, 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, next person. There's no fixing, solving, and it's just about being seen. That's it.
Yeah. And just being able to not be judged and not feel like there's
Yeah.
this weight of I can't do and say because this it's like, nah, man, like you just are. And
Yeah.
you're good. Like you're good just the way you
Yeah.
are,
And
man.
and you're good because you just are,
Yes, exactly. Like
Yeah.
there's so many layers that we and again we can only speak from the male perspective. Um but again it's just like this heaviness and this weight that we carry, the and how much I
Yeah.
love that, how much of that is actually yours.
Yeah. How much is yours? And if you stop and think about it, yeah, what am I carrying? That's that's not mine. What am I carrying that was mine in a different phase of life?
Yeah.
What can I set down? What do I no longer need to carry? And I've sat with men around the world, and I've asked them, what's the weight that you're carrying that you want to set down tonight? And I have heard some amazing things, some things that the men have carried for decades. It was never theirs to carry.
Mm. Besides being, obviously seen, and we're using that word kind of used loosely, but what is the other
Mhm.
common threads that come from people when they're leaving and they're entering that integration in the circle? Is there like a common thread you're seeing amongst the people having these experiences?
Yeah, yeah. It's one of the big common threads is alignment.
Mm,
Just doing what they feel like they're really here to do. Stop forcing things. Stop doing things out of scarcity, out of fear. Do it out of love. Do it out of alignment. And so, yeah, most of the people who come on the Vision Quest with me, these are builders. These are high performers. These are people who, for one reason or another, have been climbing that first mountain and gotten to the top. A lot of them, and now they're looking around, going, well, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, or I'm not feeling the way I thought I was going to feel. And so, one of the big common themes is I've been forcing it. Now I'm ready to allow it to happen. Now I'm ready to go with joy and ease and flow. And there's this beautiful surrendering that happens with that. And there's this like a bit of grief, not just a bit, but a lot of grief that says, I carried all that weight for so long. I did the thing. I showed up. I did what they told me to do. I cut my hair the way they told me to cut it, and I showed up with the suit and tie, and and there's this grief when they understand that they never had to do any of that. It was the game of life is won just by being yourself, by being authentic, and that's probably the biggest theme.
Now I mean, obviously we're creating very, very extreme to some degree scenarios where maybe your average person's not going to go on a vision quest, or they're not going to go climb a mountain, and they're not going to step into a sensory deprivation tank, but they still feel this yearning and this pull to step
Mhm.
into alignment, to be seen. What are some ways that you would recommend for someone to get on that path without going into some of the uncomfortable things, which we all know, that is the way, right? That's the old Carl Jung, right? The cave you fear to enter has the treasure that you
Yeah,
seek, right? Um, but
exactly.
but if you're not gonna get into the rabbit holes and get into the weeds, what are some ways that you've seen, or maybe that you've done, maybe in the earlier stages, to just start to chip away at that alignment piece?
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't have to be as extreme as any of what you just mentioned. But for me, it's always been about getting into nature, getting into truth, getting into a place of silence and solitude, um, and then being thoughtful about it, being intentional, and saying, yeah, what am I carrying that's not mine? How do I want to live? How do I want to live? What would my life look like in the absence of my concerns?
Mm,
And that's something my friend Peter Crone says. What would my life look like in the absence of my concerns, or who would I be in the absence of my concerns? And another way of saying it is you know, what would my life look like if I knew I couldn't fail? And
mhm.
so starting to examine these sorts of questions and actually taking a pen and an actual piece of paper and writing it down
Yeah.
can have can really go a long way for people who haven't taken a moment to stop and look in that big heavy backpack they're carrying and saying, what is in here? Am I just
Mm,
an emotional Sherpa? What can I set down? What's going to lighten my load? What is actually mine to carry? What do I no longer need to carry that was once mine, perhaps? And getting really intentional with it. And we've both mentioned some really good authors on this one. You mentioned Jung, you mentioned Robert Bly, and there are some other great books out there. But it really happens when you live it, when you go out and you live it and you feel it. And like you said, you can you can conceptualize it, but you got to know that move when you're in, you know, when it feels like your arm's about to get twisted off. Like, do you know that move? Do you
mm.
actually know it?
Yeah, sitting in the discomfort of someone trying to choke you quickly teaches you how to not be choked. Like, you quickly realize when someone's
Uh-huh.
arms moving in a certain direction, like, oh, this person's trying to do this thing, but it takes a
Uh-huh.
lot of taps and a lot of like hurt necks and
Yeah.
discomfort, right? But in that discomfort, I mean, I use jujitsu a lot as the parallel because I love it and I've learned so much in doing it. There have been so many times I roll with some strong dudes, man, and some very high level technique, grunt work kind of guys, and their level is just beautiful. And there have been so many times where like you'll be mounted and they're just smothering you, and all you need is, and I'll literally say that like I'm gonna either freak the fuck out, right? That's not gonna be serving because I'll just put myself in a worse position,
Yeah.
I'm gonna pass out, which is also not gonna help, or I'm gonna tap, or I can get control over all of those things that are coming up and look for the tiniest little air pocket outside of this moment. And there have been times I literally just see like
Mm.
a little glimmer of light coming through someone's gi in their armpit. I'm like, that's
Uh-huh.
what I need right now. My mic
Y-
cracked out. Hold on 1 second. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. I think we're still good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, just for that little pocket, just to take a deep breath in.
Yeah, well, I love that. And that's, like the microcosm of the cold plunge.
Yeah.
It's overcoming that voice inside your head. And yeah, so it's getting intentional. It's getting into presence and awareness. And with presence, with awareness, we can create connection.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
And removing that fear barrier and saying like, yeah, there's because it's just the unknown, right? It really boils
Hmm.
down to it's all unknown, and you can lean into the unknown and have it be completely debilitating and scary, which it can be, of course, or you could look into the unknown and say there's so much untapped magic in the unknown, and that's where I'm
Yes.
gonna kind of just try to lean more towards. It's not gonna be perfect. It's not going to be
Yeah.
beautiful and perfect, and it's not going to be this side of the perspective picture from my daughter's lens. But at the same time, it's both of those things, and finding the alignment and the beauty in all of it. And I think it was Conan O'Brien that said something like, the tapestry of life. It's like we look at life in these small little tiles, but then you pull out, and it's the entire gamut of your life, and that's the
Yeah.
beauty of it because. How many things go wrong in our lens because they're not exactly the way I want it to be. And then X amount of steps down the road, you're like, oh, that's exactly what I needed it to be. Like that
Yes.
thing had to
Exactly.
happen.
Yeah,
That
man.
thing had to
Yeah.
happen.
Had to happen. Had to happen. And thank God it did. But in the moment, it sucked.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's that scene in the Matrix. I reference it a lot when they go to see the keymaster and they want to take him somewhere and they get in the elevator and he's like, well, that went, Keanu Reeves like, well, that went horrible. And he's like, no, what happened and couldn't have happened any other way. And he's like, well,
Yeah.
like, how do you know? He's like, because we're still alive. And that's it.
Mm.
It's literally that
Mm.
simple.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. I was just talking with my daughter about it. And it's like, just because if it's not good, what have we if it's not good, it just means it's not at the end yet.
Mm.
So if you can't yet see the good in it, it just means there's more steps to follow.
Yeah. And taking that to like the business perspective, and you know this probably better than most, there's so many moments of that in
Oh
building
yeah.
and doing, and I hate the word entrepreneur at this point, but in that world of creating a life by design, there are so
Hmm.
many times where there are these setbacks, but it isn't until you actually get through it, past it, and X amount of steps down the road that you go, oh, okay, that had to happen that way.
Yeah, exactly. And thank God it did. It's
Yeah.
the Chinese parable, the farmer whose son breaks his leg and can't join the
Yep.
army, and then and it's just on and on and on. And it's the cool thing is it's that takes a different mindset. That takes the mindset of this is all happening not to me, but for
Mm,
me.
yeah.
And so those moments where, yeah, you're about to get tapped out and it just is not fun. And you have that presence and awareness to go, oh, wait a minute, this is just happening for me.
Hmm.
And that changes everything. That changes it to, so what is the teacher here? What
Mm,
is the silver lining? What is the golden thread?
mm.
What is here for me so that I can use this? And it changes it into something that's here for you or to you as opposed to for you. And that changes everything.
Yeah. And then can you take those steps backwards and go, how did I get myself in this position? Right? Good, bad, or indifferent. If you finish, like again, bringing the jujitsu metaphor, but
Hmm.
you tap someone, what were the steps that I took to get there? What was the path? It's not always gonna be the same path. It's not gonna be perfect, but this time it worked. So can I recreate that in another vacuum? And if you are tapped, can you run back 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 steps to say, what was the chain of events that led me here? And that's when, like, when I train with some of the guys, like that is the best way to train. You get caught in something, you don't have to tap somebody. You go, how did we get here? Can we run that
Mm.
back like 4 steps? Like, where was I before this? And where was I 3 steps before that? Because it was a chain of events that led me. And that's what black belts do, right? They set you up for move 20 at move one. They're not looking to get to number
Yeah.
five. Five is just another pathway. They're 20 steps ahead of you, and they're just setting you up to fall into line. And that's the beauty of it that I take away from is that there's so many opportunities to run back the tape and say, how do we get here? And that introspective yet outside perspective is what allows you to maybe not fall into it again, but have the awareness when it's coming.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I'm thinking about a time in my life when that was the case, and it was in coming down from Denali, and realizing I no longer wanted to be in the business that I'd spent 7 years building with my co-founder. And yeah, we didn't know that we'd even be able to sell the business. We hit a pretty big headwind, and it felt like it was all happening to us
Mm,
for about 6 weeks. It all was happening to us, and this sucks, and it isn't fair, and 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 I went and I talked with a coach, an amazing guy here in Boulder, Colorado, Kevin Lawrence, and I shared with Kevin all my worries and concerns, and I spent probably 15 minutes telling him why I was so worried, and his response was, "So why are you worried?"
yeah,
And I was
exactly.
like, I was
Yeah.
like, dude, I just were you asleep?
Yeah.
And he goes, no, no, I heard. But how does that help you? How does it help you get out of this situation to be worried? And I realized he was right. And in that moment, fuck, he's 100% right. And I dropped 60, 70% of the worry. I just was like, it's not serving me. I'm dropping it.
Yeah.
And and I had told him just before laying out my worries, I said, if I could just get a parachute and jump out of this plane, I would gladly take it. I wouldn't take anything with me, but I would also leave the weight of this behind.
Mm,
And and then he said, "So do you still want that parachute?" I said, "Well, my worry is mostly gone. I feel like this is all happening for me, not to me any longer. It shifted in that moment." And I had already decided I was going to go be a guide in rites of passage. I was going to be a coach. I was going to have deep, meaningful conversations with people who were going through similar things that I was. And so I realized this is all happening for me so that I can understand, have more empathy, and have battle scars.
mm.
And I realized I didn't want a parachute. I actually wanted to land the plane, even if it was going to be a crash landing. And that changed everything. And I swear to you, the very next day, the next morning, I woke up feeling completely different. I went into my office and I sat down, and it came to me how we were going to get out of that situation, who we were going to sell our company to. I had met him 3 months before at a networking event, and it was under my nose the whole time. But I was
Yeah.
too worried. I wasn't looking for that pinprick of light. I was thinking about, I am going to get tapped out. This is going to suck, be embarrassing, et cetera, et
Mm,
cetera. I was in that state of mind. As
yeah.
soon as I got into where is the pinprick of air? Where's that pocket I can reach for? What is the teacher here?
Mm.
What can I learn from it? That's when the answer unfolded. And 3.5 months later, we'd sold our company.
Yeah, and you think about how many men, and there's a Thoreau quote in here: "Is the massive men lead lives of quiet desperation." It's the one right there. And how many men enter that state, and unfortunately, they don't leave it. Right? They decide to take a different route. They decide that the weight they're carrying isn't one that they can put down, and they have to take a
Mm-hmm.
different exit strategy than maybe people would hope
Mm-hmm.
for them. And it's wild, man. It is it's horrible. It's horrible that people do, men in our case that we're referencing, and the statistics support that and back then show that that is what they are dealing with on a mass scale. and they're
Oh
not
yeah.
given the elders or the support from any age, whether it be 18, 6, 40, whatever the number is. They don't have the tribe to go back to and say, this is what I'm dealing with. And they don't have the mentors around them to say, okay, and I do some
Hmm.
small coaching myself, and I have one particular client I'm thinking of. He'll text me something. I'm like, I'm really dealing with, jealousy and stress and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, good. It's the old Jocko
Hmm.
thing. Good. He's like, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
I'm like, because all it's doing is giving you an opportunity to learn about yourself more. Now you're just
Yeah.
afraid to interface with that feeling. Go interface with it. Go ask why.
Hmm.
And don't just stop at like, well, because X, Y, and Z. No, no, no. Go back.
Yeah.
Reverse engineer. And it's uncomfortable, but that is where the gold is.
That is. Yeah. Yeah. Carl Jung, he'd say, "Oh, your life is going great. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Your
Right.
life is imploding. Awesome. Let's get the
Yeah.
champagne out
Yeah.
because now we can actually grow and go somewhere." And yeah, it's all here for us. And sometimes that it can be really hard to remember that.
Yeah.
But the it's in those moments when it is hard that's where character's made, and it's where the presence and awareness really comes into play.
Yeah, and that's where you do find that, it's the alchemist, right? It's going back to the origin source and going on that. You
Hmm.
have to go on that journey. You gotta go out, you gotta leave the nest, you gotta leave the shire, you gotta get out in the world and see it. But you do see the numbers of men and the decline of marriage and children and college graduation, and there's this disenchantment that the game's not even worth playing. But as men who are in the throes of it, it is worth playing, but you have to see the value in the game itself. And, I love the idea of, I experienced that as well when I was in the previous employment. I say we had a mutual breakup because I was kind of walking out the door anyway, but they did the breaking. And prior to that, I was like, I need to find a new thing. I got to do this. I got to do that. Me, 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 me. And then it came to a point for me, it's faith in God. And I said, uh, just put me where you want me. And 2 weeks later, I got let go. And I could have imploded and freaked out and panicked. And I said, oh, I got exactly what I asked for, what I prayed for. It's just
Uh-huh.
not in the way that I wanted it to go down. Right.
Hmm.
So I got, there's this great anime on Netflix called Blue Eyed Samurai, and whatever. Long story short, this guy wants to be a samurai. He has no hands. And there's this other guy who is a samurai, and the guy with no hands is given this opportunity to go do samurai stuff, be a hero. And he looks at me and goes, you've asked for this. He goes, what do you do when God gives you everything you prayed for? And he's just like, oh man, like this is the moment. But you have to
Yeah.
realize it or else it's going to be gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said earlier, it'll shift to somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that energy
that should
comes.
scare you more. That should
Right.
scare you more than the discomfort of you taking action on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that energy comes, and you have that opportunity to say to yes, I'm going on that hunt for my buried treasure, or nah, uh, I'm not. And but when you do sign up, like the alchemist, you go on that beautiful enchanted journey, and sometimes you got to go really far. You got to go all the way to the pyramids,
Yeah.
but you come back and you find it's right there. And
Yeah.
yeah, I really do believe your deepest gift or gifts are right next to your biggest gifts are right next to your deepest wound.
Mm.
And that's what my journey's been about. That wound of scarcity, that wound of not feeling like I am enough or have enough. I spent 35 years trying to get as far away as possible from that, only to realize that my true gifts are right next to it, right next to it.
It's amazing, dude. Thank you so much for this. This was tremendous. I feel like we could go like another hour and a half easily, like super easily. If people wanted to find out more about what you're doing, if they wanted to hop on a quest, how can they go about to find out more?
Yeah, thanks, Vinny. RetTaylor.com. It's RetTaylor.com. That's my website, and there's all types of info about Vision Quest and when they are, and and all that. I'm on Instagram, Ret Taylor _ again, RET Taylor _ and I'm on LinkedIn. That's about it, man.
Awesome, dude. I really appreciate this. Was really, again, we just spoke the other day and we're like, yeah, this is definitely gonna be a sweet podcast. Let's get on a podcast. So I appreciate you carving out the time to do this, and I highly encourage people checking out your work. I got a chance to look at the website and some of the work that you're doing, and you're living it, right? You're not just one of these guys that are out there talking about it. You're actually embodying it and living it, and it's a true testament to your own journey and that discovery that you went on to kind of shed that version of yourself. So from one man to another, I'm proud of you, bro, and I appreciate you.
I appreciate you back, Vinny, and thanks for giving a platform. This is important stuff that I think that I wish I had heard a lot earlier in my life.
Same here. Same here.
Yeah.